Axel Ruda Kubana entered the world on August 7, 2006 in Cardiff, Wales. His parents, Alons Ruda Kubana and Letitia Muzier, had escaped Rwanda after the genocide, desperate to rebuild a life far from the horrors they had witnessed. In Wales, Letitia found solace in a strict form of evangelical Christianity, becoming a devoted follower of David Turner, a controversial evangelist who claimed that prayer could cure disabilities and chronic illnesses. The family had only been in the UK for 4 years when Axel was born. A few years later, around 2013, they relocated to Banks, a small coastal village near Southport. Alons kept busy working as a taxi driver in Liverpool, while also running an online store selling whatever goods he could get his hands on. He had a black belt in Shakum Karate and once worked as a coach. But in another life, he had also served in the Rwanda Patriotic Army, a detail that added another layer of complexity to Axel's upbringing. Letitia stayed home to care for the family, while Axel's older brother excelled in academics and music. Today on True Crimes by Dominic, we dive into a story so chilling, so catastrophically preventable, it will haunt every parent's worst nightmare. A man hiding in plain sight. A man with a well-documented trail of disturbing behavior, one sickening red flag after another, was not only ignored by the system meant to stop him, he was practically handed the opportunity to carry out an unthinkable plan he'd been nurturing in the darkest corners of his mind for years. One ordinary day, at a place meant for laughter, music, and dreams, he made his move. And the most horrifying part? Everyone who should have stopped him knew what he was capable of. Stay with me until the very end as we unravel how every warning sign was overlooked, and how a tragedy that should have been impossible became devastatingly real. And before we dive deeper, if you're drawn to uncovering the darkest corners of human nature, make sure to like this video, subscribe to True Crimes by Dominic, and tap that notification bell so you never miss a story that needs to be heard. Now let's begin. You think you're just dropping your child off for dance class, a simple, innocent ritual filled with tiny shoes, nervous smiles, and proud parents waiting to see their little ones shine. But sometimes, beneath the surface of even the safest spaces, something waits. Something that doesn't care about innocence or life. But Axel was different. Neighbors barely knew he existed. Some said he was shy, quiet, almost clingy, the kind of child who seemed to vanish into the walls of his own home. One neighbor who had lived in the cul-de-sac for years could only remember seeing him twice. To the world outside, he was a ghost. According to Alons, Axel was on the autism spectrum, struggling from a young age to connect with his peers. School was brutal. Bullying followed him like a shadow. Theater became an unexpected safe haven. Axel took acting classes at the Pauline Quirk Academy and later joined a musical theater group. He even snagged a small role in a charity commercial for children in need, dressed up as David Tennant's version of Doctor Who. But even in the places where he tried to shine, Axel struggled to truly fit in. In 2017, at just 11 years old, Axel started at Range High School in nearby Formby. Teachers soon noticed cracks in his behavior, rising anxiety, severe social isolation, outbursts of anger that seemed to come from nowhere. Students recalled something darker, a boy obsessed with violent historical figures, someone who studied wars and genocides with unnerving fascination. One student would later describe him, chillingly, a ticking bomb. Axel spent hundreds of hours fixated on some of history's bloodiest events, the Ukraine conflict, World War II, but especially the Rwanda genocide, the trauma tied directly to his own bloodline. Then in October 2019, a truly disturbing moment. Axel reached out to Childline, a British counseling service for young people, and asked a horrifying question. What should I do if I want to kill someone? He admitted he was being bullied, but also confessed that he had brought knives to school multiple times, intent on violence. Not long after, he was expelled. In December that same year, Axel came back to the school, not with a knife this time, but with a hockey stick. On it, he had written the names of students. Before a teacher could stop him, he assaulted a student, breaking their wrist. Police later found a knife hidden in his backpack ready for use, but by some miracle, unused that day. Axel was arrested and charged with assault and weapons possession. He pled guilty and was assigned to the youth offending team for counseling. After that, he was moved to the Acorn School, a special needs institution for children with complex behavioral issues. There, alarm bells kept ringing. Axel was referred to the UK's Prevent program, a government initiative designed to catch individuals at risk of radicalization or violent extremism. He wasn't referred once, but 3 times. Each time for acts of violence for obsessively researching school shootings, terrorist attacks, and mass killings. And each time, the case was quietly closed with no action taken. His record was getting darker by the day. Axel was expelled from Acorn after the school uncovered his prior assault conviction. He tried distance learning, but quickly fell behind. Eventually, he was allowed back to Acorn under strict supervision, but nothing really changed. More disturbing behavior followed, showing fellow students graphic images of Muammar Gaddafi's dead body, leaving open tabs about the London Bridge terror attacks. And yet again, no action. Meanwhile, Axel's home life was a battlefield. Police were called to the house at least 4 times over violent incidents. Axel wasn't the victim, he was the aggressor. He damaged his father's car, lashed out when grounded from the computer, and once ran away without paying for a bus fare, forcing a driver to call the authorities. Axel switched schools again, this time to Pressfield High School and Specialist College. But attendance was rare, and when school staff came to check on him, they often requested police escorts. That's how dangerous they believed Axel had become. Then came the breaking point. On July 24th, 2024, Axel made an anonymous call for a taxi to take him back to Range High School, just as summer break was beginning. He sat in the car, wearing a green hoodie and a surgical mask. His father, Alonz, stepped outside to speak with him. Nobody knows for sure what was said that day. Axel stepped out of the taxi and returned inside the house. That small, almost silent moment was the final calm before the storm. The last time anyone had a chance to stop what was coming. What do you think happened between Axel and his father that day? Drop your theories in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't yet, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because what happens next in this story will leave you absolutely stunned. Stay with me. It's about to get much, much darker. Nearly a week later, on the morning of July 29th, things took a horrifying turn. It started just after 6 a.m. when a neighbor spotted Axel wandering the street, pacing back and forth. It was strange, not just odd, but deeply wrong. This was someone who didn't usually draw attention, yet here he was, looking lost and restless in the early morning hours. Then, at around 11:45 a.m., Axel quietly summoned a taxi, ordering it anonymously like he'd done before. He climbed in, wearing that same green hoodie, face covered with a surgical mask, and told the driver to take him to Heartspace, a local community center tucked away in town. When they arrived, Axel stiffed the driver, refusing to pay, and disappeared into the building. Inside Heartspace, upstairs, 2 women, Leanne Lucas and Heidi Little, were running a dance workshop. It was meant to be a joyful event, a Taylor Swift-themed morning full of laughter and excitement for little girls between the ages of 6 and 11. Axel walked in, silent, almost blending into the scene. Leanne glanced at him and assumed, like anyone would, that he was there to pick up a child, but then he pulled a 7-inch kitchen knife from under his hoodie. Without a word, he strode up to one of the little girls and started stabbing. Chaos exploded. In a horrifying, frenzied silence, Axel moved through the room, attacking the children one after another. It happened so quickly that for a moment, no one fully grasped what was going on. It wasn't until Axel reached her that Leanne realized the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. He stabbed her 5 times in the back. Still, through her injuries, she fought with everything she had to protect the kids, shoving them toward fire exits, hiding them wherever she could. Heidi managed to barricade one child in a bathroom, shielding her from the carnage. One little girl almost made it. She was escaping when Axel caught her at the door, yanking her back into the room and stabbing her too. Downstairs, 63-year-old staff member Jonathan Hayes heard the commotion and raced upstairs. He burst into the dance studio and found Axel standing over a small, motionless body. Jonathan tried to wrestle the knife from Axel, but was stabbed in the leg for his bravery. By 11:57 a.m., police stormed the building. What they found was devastating. Axel was standing over the body of 6-year-old baby King, a child who had been stabbed 122 times. When officers shouted for him to drop the weapon, Axel did. He surrendered without resistance, the knife clattering to the floor. Outside, strangers on the street were rushing to help. Old Martin Tijan and Joel Verite had been driving down Hart Street when they noticed something strange. Joel slammed on the brakes, reversing the van back down the road. That's when they saw her, a young girl leaning against a car, blood covering her body, barely conscious. Joel jumped out of the van and ran to her, asking if she was okay. The girl just stared at him, shaking, then screamed, "He's killing kids over there." Joel and Martin froze for a second, overwhelmed by the horror of what she said, but then instinct took over. They ran toward the building she pointed to. As they moved, the girl, using the last of her strength, collapsed to the ground. She was still clutching her phone, mid-call with emergency services. Joel grabbed the phone, talking to the police while Martin stayed with her, trying to comfort her. Joel ran toward the dance studio's entrance, but before he could reach it, a woman in a car waved frantically for him to come over. She was screaming, honking her horn, desperate for help. Joel ran to her and saw something out of a nightmare. The woman was sitting in the driver's seat with one child beside her and 4 or 5 more crammed into the back, all of them soaked in blood. It didn't feel real. It felt like a war zone or something torn from a disaster movie. The woman, trembling, begged Joel, "Please, love, get her out. Just get them to safety." Joel opened the door and gently pulled out a little girl who was barely conscious. In that moment, he didn't think he just moved. He cradled the child in his arms and sprinted toward the road, screaming for help. They laid her down carefully. Martin stayed with the girl while more people rushed to the scene, gathering around, doing anything they could. But Joel wasn't done. He ran back into the building. As he approached the entrance to the dance studio, 2 terrified men inside pointed upstairs, saying, "He's in there, mate." Joel cautiously opened the downstairs door. The stairway spiraled up toward the studio. He called out, "Hello?" but only silence answered. He took a few steps up. That's when he saw him. Axel, standing at the top of the stairs, hoodie up, knife still in hand. For a brief, chilling second, their eyes locked. Joel would later say he could see something cold, empty in Axel's eyes before the young man slipped away out of sight. Meanwhile, back outside, Martin performed CPR on one little girl, 9-year-old Alice Dilva Aguirre. Paramedics arrived, and the wounded were rushed to hospitals across the area. Alder Hey Children's Hospital, Aintree University Hospital, Southport and Formby District General, Ormskirk General, and Royal Manchester Children's Hospital. But for 3 precious young girls, it was already too late. Baby King and Elsie Stansom died at the scene. Alice Dilva Aguirre passed away the following day. The injuries inflicted were beyond horrific. Elsie, just 7 years old, suffered over 85 wounds across her face, head, neck, torso, and arms. Baby King, only 6 years old, had endured 122 sharp force injuries. The pathologist confirmed that Axel had tried to decapitate her. Alice suffered devastating wounds to her head and back. As for the surviving children, their suffering was also immense. Due to their young ages, their names were protected, but what we know is chilling. One child, who almost escaped, had 32 stab wounds across her arms and back. Another was stabbed once in the chest and multiple times in the back. One child had her shoulder blade and 2 vertebrae shattered by stab wounds. Another needed her spleen surgically removed after deep injuries. One child suffered life-threatening internal injuries and fractures. Some others escaped with fewer physical wounds, but the emotional scars will last a lifetime. Leanne Lucas was stabbed 5 times while saving as many children as she could. Heidi Little, thankfully, was not physically harmed. When police questioned Axel, his words were chilling beyond belief. he told officers. "It's a good thing those children are dead. I'm so glad, so happy." Later, he added, "I'm feeling neutral. Such a good thing those kids are dead." He showed no remorse. A search of his home painted an even darker picture. Investigators found a copy of military studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, an Al-Qaeda manual teaching how to kill with knives. Under his bed, they discovered a plastic container with castor oil and rice pulp ingredients used to create deadly ricin. Though it wasn't fully refined, experts testified it could have produced over 1,200 fatal doses. On his devices, police uncovered a trove of violent material, images of war zones, tortured bodies, and a disturbing fascination with weapons like machetes. Axel Ruda Kubana was charged with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, possession of a bladed weapon, production of a biological toxin, and possession of terrorist materials. Initially, he pleaded not guilty, but on January 20th, the day before trial, he abruptly changed course, pleading guilty to every single charge. During sentencing, the court heard heart-wrenching victim statements. Instructor Leanne Lucas spoke about how she now feels constant fear in public places, unable to trust strangers ever again. Alice's grieving parents asked through tears, "So what do we do now?" Jenny, the mother of Elsie Stan, spoke directly to Axel, declaring, "We refuse to give you the satisfaction. You know what you have done. We hope the weight of that knowledge haunts you every single day." Look, Axel was present at the start of sentencing, but had to be dragged out after yelling for medical help, widely believed to be a stunt, to avoid facing the families he had devastated. Justice Julian Goose delivered the final judgment. He described Axel's attack as a settled and determined intention to massacre innocent children, stating that if he had not been stopped, Axel would have murdered all 26 little girls at that workshop and any adult who dared get in his way. The judge called it violence of such extremity that it's difficult to comprehend. In the end, justice was served, but no sentence could ever undo what happened that day. 3 beautiful lives were stolen, dozens more forever changed. And for the community of Southport, the wounds remain deep, raw, and unhealed. The devastation that Axel Ruda Kubana unleashed on those families, on that community, it's something that will never fully heal. Every life he touched was shattered. Every future he tore away left an open wound that still aches today. Now, when it came time for sentencing, the judge had a heavy decision to make. Legally, he had to consider Axel's age 17 at the time of the attacks, only turning 18 once in custody. Because of that, under UK law, the judge was barred from imposing a full life order. Instead, Axel was sentenced to 52 years in prison, but later that sentence shifted. He was officially detained at His Majesty's pleasure, a grim term used in Commonwealth countries. It basically means Axel won't even be considered for release until 2077, when he'll be 70 years old. But no number can really measure the damage done. This wasn't just a tragedy for a town, it shook the entire country. In the days that followed, major figures like Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Patrick Hurley stood up in Parliament, speaking out, promising action. Even King Charles III sent his condolences, as did many members of the royal family. In a deeply emotional moment, the Princess of Wales, making her first public appearance after her battle with cancer, visited the victims' families, alongside the prince. Support poured in. A GoFundMe campaign raised over £150,000 for the grieving families. The local heart space became a sea of flowers, teddy bears, handwritten letters. The weight of collective sorrow was almost visible. But the grief quickly turned to anger and scrutiny. Serious questions were raised about why Axel had slipped through the cracks, despite 3 separate referrals to prevent. The UK's program meant to intervene before acts of terror. A public inquiry was launched, trying to uncover how warning signs were missed. One chilling theory? That because Axel didn't fit a neat ideological mold because he wasn't driven by a known extremist agenda, the threats he posed were underestimated. Changes have since been made, updating the way authorities assess potential radicalization. Hopefully, it will mean tragedies like this can be stopped before they ever happen again. Still, in the immediate aftermath, another monster, reared its head. Misinformation. Because of Commonwealth law, authorities didn't release Axel's name or details at first, and the vacuum of information got filled with toxic rumors. Online, whispers spread like wildfire, falsely claiming the killer was a Muslim refugee. And that sparked a wildfire of hate. On July 30th, hundreds gathered outside Southport Mosque. Chants of "English till I die" and "No surrender" filled the night air. What started as shouting quickly escalated into chaos. Objects hurled at police, riot squads called in, officers battered and bruised. By the time calm was restored, 27 officers were in hospital. And that was just the beginning. The very next day, furious crowds gathered near Downing Street. Over 100 arrests were made. Protests flared up in towns and cities across the UK, often targeting mosques or refugee centers. "We want our country back," protesters cried, their anger misdirected at innocent people. Sure. Then, on August 3rd, counter-protesters hit the streets, trying to drown out the hate with chants of, "Say it loud, say it clear, refugees are welcome here." Sometimes they outnumbered the original crowds. But that didn't stop the violence. Not even close. By August 3rd, tragedy struck again. A woman was stabbed in Stirling. Immediately, rumors flooded social media once more. Another Muslim attacker, people said. Police scrambled to correct the lies, announcing that the attacker was actually a white man. But by then, the damage was done. By August 5th, the fires of mass protest were finally starting to burn out, but smaller outbreaks of violence continued. On August 6th, a group of masked men stole a car and rammed it into a real estate office, wrongly believing the agency was renting homes to asylum seekers. That same night, a Molotov cocktail was hurled at a mosque in Northern Ireland, leading to the largest police mobilization the country had seen in over a decade. It got so bad that people with even vaguely Middle Eastern features were being attacked on the streets. Police were ambushed, patrol cars smashed. The situation was out of control. By August 8th, the scales had tipped. More counter-protesters were showing up than protesters. And slowly, painfully, by August 11th, the storm finally began to settle. But the aftermath was messy. Jails were so overcrowded with arrested protesters that the government had to authorize prisoners to be temporarily held in police stations, something not seen in years. In Parliament, Axel's crimes became a rallying cry. Politicians waved around the horrifying materials found on his computer as proof that social media needed tougher regulations. Debates raged, but so far no new laws have come out of it. There was also heated anger that Axel hadn't been sentenced to life without parole, that because of his age, there was a legal cap on how harsh his punishment could be. The Attorney General reviewed the case, but in the end, decided not to appeal the sentence. One of the biggest questions still haunting many: if Axel's identity had been released sooner, could all this violence, the protests, the riots, the fear have been prevented? Or would the rage have boiled over anyway? I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're from the UK. Drop your insights in the comments below. As for the Ruda Kubana family, they're still believed to be living somewhere in the UK, but for their safety, their location remains undisclosed. They haven't given interviews. Axel's parents' church issued a short statement calling for peace and condemning the racially charged misinformation that ignited so much unnecessary pain. Meanwhile, the survivors and the grieving continue to try and piece their lives back together. Jonathan Hayes, one of the workers who was there during the attack, spoke in several interviews about the unbearable guilt he carries, how he wishes he could have done more to save the children. He still battles daily flashbacks of that nightmare. The funerals that followed, they were heartbreaking beyond words. Alice de Silva. Aguiar's funeral was held at St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Southport. So many people came to mourn her that loudspeakers had to be set up outside just so everyone could hear. Her uncle, Richard Lero, read a eulogy from her parents, Sergio and Alexandra, describing their little girl as a bright, kind soul who moved through the world with grace, love, and boundless energy. They remembered the way she transformed from their tiny princess into a preteen, excited about skincare, makeup, and dreams of a future of a home with a garden, of children she would someday raise. 9 short years. It wasn't enough. They spoke of cuddling her every night, of how she filled every space in their lives with joy. Her loss has left a hollow ache they will carry forever. Jenny Payne, Alice's teacher at Churchtown Primary, remembered her as endlessly curious and passionate a young girl, with her whole future stretching ahead of her. Alice was laid to rest in a white horse-drawn carriage. 1 week later, her life was celebrated again, her ballet shoes clutched tightly by her parents, in a gesture so raw, so human, it breaks your heart. E.B. King's funeral was on August 17, 2024. Her parents, Lauren and Ben King, asked for privacy, simply asking others to light a candle in E.B.'s memory. She was described as a sweet, joyful spirit, her light gone too soon, but never forgotten. Her sister, who survived that horrible day, was praised for her immense bravery. Elsie Dustanol's funeral followed on August 23rd at St. John's Church in Birkdale. Her family invited the community and asked mourners to wear bright colors because they wanted Elsie's day to be filled with joy and celebration. Liverpool's Lighthouse Choir performed, singing some of Elsie's favorite songs, including a few by Taylor Swift. Later that evening, her family held a private ceremony, promising that Elsie's legacy would live on a legacy of hope and positivity, with Elsie always by their side. As for Axel Ruda Kubana, he's shown no sign of remorse, not once. Today he sits locked away at His Majesty's Prison Belmarsh, often referred to as Britain's Guantanamo Bay. He shares those dark halls with infamous figures like serial killer Stephen Port and the notorious child killer Hussein Sharif. For his own sake, Axel, better pray no one gets their hands on a tunican lid in there. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like this video and share it with someone. And if you haven't already, subscribe to True Crimes by Dominic. New stories drop every 2 days, and I promise each one will leave you thinking. Make sure you turn on the bell icon so you never miss an update, because some stories demand to be heard, and this is one of them. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep asking questions.